What's good, everybody? What's going on, man? It's Stephen Qualls II, aka Mr. Qualified. It's your boy, and we're back for another episode of Qualified TV. I'm so happy to be getting this podcast done again. This particular episode had the opportunity to do this interview, and just through technological difficulties and scheduling difficulties, took a while for me to be ready to release it, and was happy enough that Denajha had time for us to be able to get this done again. And she just got on the next season, so that's all that matters. But I'll let Denajha introduce herself, officially, and say a little bit more about what it is that she does, and then we'll hop right into the interview as we typically do. So let the people know who you are.
Hey guys, so I am Denajha. I am a Mizzou alum, 2019. After graduation, I moved to one of the best cities ever, New York City, and I was doing advertising. Right now, I'm in the Chicago area. My full-time is an online health and fitness coach. So that is what I prioritize, is really making sure people are on their health and fitness journeys.
Absolutely. That's amazing. And I mean, fitness and I think health and wealth in general has become a huge topic over the last few years. So definitely a lot to get into with that. But let's start with, where do you feel like I don't even want to just, solely consider it fitness, but when do you feel like your true health and wealth journey kind of began for you, at least from your perspective for yourself?
Oh, I love this question. Truthfully speaking, I've always been an athlete. Ever since I was little, my first love was basketball. And as I was growing up, my parents had me in a lot of sports. So I was playing basketball. I realized I was fast when they took me to a pumpkin patch, and it was like the pumpkin dash. And I looked back and I saw all the kids behind me, and I was like, oh, this is fun. I love running. So then they signed me up for track. So I did basketball, track, volleyball. When I got to college, so my first year at Mizzou, I just completely fell off of all sports. I wanted to go to a university to run track. My senior year of high school, I tore my hamstring really bad. So I had kind of sacrificed my whole senior year track season. Really unfortunate for me. And during this time, I just didn't have that love for sports anymore, because I had always connected it to certain accolades or just the vision of going to school to run. So got to Mizzou freshman year, stopped working out. And it wasn't until my junior year when I fell in love with fitness again, started working out at the Black-owned gym API. And yeah, I can get into more of that later on how that all sparked into what is now. But yeah, I fell in love with fitness again during college, but growing up, I had always been an athlete.
Absolutely. Can you touch a little bit more on that time in between where you were kind of giving it up, specifically after that injury? I mean, I've pulled a hamstring, never tore a hamstring, but
Yeah.
if it's worse than pulling one, because pulling one is already hell in itself. So,
Yeah.
do you feel like you kind of I don't want to call it or label it depression, but was it somewhere in that space that kept you away from getting back to it? And then what was kind of the emotional process of getting back into a space where you could even fall in love with fitness again?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that is something I just feel like mental health within sports and fitness related. It's not a topic that is discussed that much, but it truly is one in its own category. Because I definitely did experience extreme sadness. At the time, I wouldn't classify it as depression, but being where I am now, what I know now, what I've felt since then, I'm yeah, I was definitely at one of my lowest points when I wasn't playing sports. And I realized how much fitness at the time, or just movement in general, really helped me within just my overall mood, my happiness, my energy. I just really didn't feel like myself when I was playing sports, without sports. So the hamstring tear definitely impacted me mentally. I feel like socially it also impacted me, because I remember some of my closest friends that I would run track with. So I would see them at practice, or be excited about going to meets together. So given that I had to sit a large portion of that out during high school, definitely played a role into how I later found fitness again in college.
Yeah, I think that's an aspect outside of the kind of health and wealth aspect of it, or realm of it. I think whenever you're dealing with injuries, or whenever you're dealing with something that takes you away from that environment that you've gotten so used to, and that becomes a part of your social world, it can have impacts on that aspect of things as well. So yeah, absolutely. But in college, when you fall back in love with fitness, what is that journey like? How does it begin? And when you started it, did you have a goal in mind when you started in terms of what you wanted to do past your own health and fitness goals, or at the time was it just I want to
Yeah.
get in shape, or I want to fall in love with this again? What were the beginning stages of, where your
Oh,
journey and career has started?
that's a really good question. I like thinking back, I remember I had started before this happened. Like this was like a big part of like that memory, but my friend and I, Jenny, we actually started a fitness challenge. There was a fitness girl I followed on Instagram at the time. And back in college, this was like my like junior year of college. I had just started to follow like women within the fitness industry, like Black women specifically. So there was a few at the time that I was following, like they would pop up on my timeline, and that really like sparked some inspiration within me because I was like, I can start working out at home. Like I can find a gym where I can actually like start to fall in love with fitness again. Because previously, before college, I had only seen fitness as practice, like going to practice after school or like waking up and in preparation for something. I was competing for a game coming up soon, so I was always practicing towards something, but I had never had like a personal relationship with like, okay, like what does fitness mean to me? Like, how does this help me clear my mind? How is it an outlet? How does it help me motivate and encourage other women to also be healthy? So definitely my junior year of college, at the time, I didn't have any like supreme intention. I wasn't like, okay, like this is gonna be my full-time career. Like I didn't even see it as something I could monetize from until I was like, wait, I'm really good at this. Like I started to get creative with workouts. I started to just think of different ways I could integrate my friends into fitness. And that to me was like, oh, like the Black owned gym I started working at, they specialize in boot camps. And I was like, oh, boot camps is a thing. I'm doing this for free with my friends. I'm like, I could definitely start to like bring people in, have little promos, have little events. So that's where I started to think about it in more of a business aspect. And then another thing that even pushed me towards that thought process was the fact that I wasn't happy with what I was doing at Mizzou. Like I was in the journalism school, yeah, but I started to just think about, I'm like, is this what I really want to do? And then I also had these side jobs where I was like working at the hospital. I was also working at like Marshall's for a little bit. I'm just like, what is it that I want to do? And then as I was having more fun with fitness, I'm like, okay, I think there's opportunity for me to definitely grow this beyond like a small little seed and actually build a community and things like that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that I've had in the other conversations I've even had this season with some of the guests, it seems as if college is such a great environment to experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And you get this opportunity to you get the leeway to do these things that you aren't sure what you're doing them for, but they aren't hurting you in the same way that if you're doing something like that, maybe 5-10 years out of undergrad, of course, depending on what life is like, it may not be the worst situation in the world, but the pressure starts to mount the older we get, the more we get acclimated into the real world. So I think when you're able to kind of really find that niche, and know for sure, like the earlier the better. So it's amazing
Yeah,
that you had that experience
yeah.
in college. When you graduated, what was the goal? Like when you were leaving, what was the goal? Okay, I'm graduating, I'm done with this 4-year experience. What was the plan after graduation?
Yeah. So post grad, I had my full time. Well, no, at the time I was in the MATE program, and that's when I had the internship within advertising, and that had me placed in New York. And initially, when I got that offer, I wasn't really moved by it. I was like, I don't really like. I had been to New York one time and before that, and I was just like, I don't know if I see myself in New York. So I didn't really. When I got the offer to be there post grad, I was just kind of like, all right, like I'll just go for it. It's like one of the only opportunities on the table that has like my, I'm getting paid. I have like somewhere to stay. So let me just go for it. Went for it. Realized like maybe like a month or so, less than a month or so into the internship that I absolutely hated it. Like what I was doing, what they had me doing at the time, it was integrated production. And I was like, this is not what I see myself doing. It was just like more computer work. And I'm just like having to take orders from people. Did not like it at all. So I knew that I had to find a way out, but I was good at my job. So like while I hated it, I was so good at it. And I figured that if I could get to the point where I got a full-time offer there, I could use my time spent in New York to network within the fitness industry and kind of see, get my feet wet within that realm and really see if I can monetize from this year, take off like with this year. Because already in college, I had started to just sort of build a little bit of a network where it's like I was establishing myself as someone within fitness, but it was always just a side hustle. Like I never thought of it as something like, okay, let me grow this to a brand. So yeah, New York definitely helped me just carve out exactly what could be in terms of like a fitness business.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people take that route, or at least I've seen that be the route that has been taken, I would say, in the last 5 years. We all go to school for, a degree. And I don't, if I had to guess a percentage, I feel like roughly 60% of people that go get a degree either
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be in that field actually, like once they graduate,
Yeah.
or as they graduate they realize that it's not the field that they want to get into. So a lot of people, but because we've learned it for 4 years, because we've learned how to maintain jobs in that industry, it becomes something where, okay, I can do this to put myself in a situation to do something else or to grow something else that I don't want to be a side hustle, forever. But you talked about that balance and navigating being good at something, so having the ability to do it even though it's not what you want to do. How do you balance that, where you have something that you have to do, it's necessity, you got to take care of yourself, you got to take bills, but you have something you're extremely passionate about that you want to do, but you have to make sure your risk are intentional and calculated in kind of like the steps you take to build it, because it may not be as guaranteed or
Yeah.
sustainable for you specifically. How did you balance that internal kind of navigation of, I really don't like what I'm doing, I'd rather be doing this, but I gotta do this right now, let me think long game? What was your approach and thought process with all of that?
Yeah, I think two words that you said, intention and strategy. Like I knew the intention was for me to ultimately be happy. Like I wanted a job that allowed me the flexibility. I wanted the job that allowed me to like really flex my people skills, be social, like see people and have them smile, be with clients that just make my day. And I knew the environment that I was in at the time was not that. So I'm like, in an ideal world, me doing what I love, given my, location right now is, like New York City, Brooklyn at that. I'm like, there's like major opportunity for me to just really like mold myself into who it is that I want to be career wise. And so what I did during the time, although I wasn't enjoying my 9 to 5, I'm like, there are still things I can do to start to plant that seed. So I remember one of the influencers that I was following that I knew was based in Brooklyn. She had since moved to LA, but she announced that she was going to be doing a pop-up boot camp in Manhattan. And this was maybe, I had only at the time lived in New York for I think 2 months. So I asked a friend, I was like, oh my gosh, like she's going to be here. Do you want to come with me? And she was like, yeah. The day comes, that friend sleeps in. So it's just me by myself. And like, I didn't have any, like, I didn't have that many friends within fitness in New York. So I went by myself, go to her boot camp. It's amazing. I take a picture with her after. And then I meet another girl in the class and she was like, oh my gosh, like you live in Crown Heights. So we met. And so we built like a little fitness network. And then she was like, we literally met at the boot camp. Turns out she ended up living like around the corner from me. So we would go to the gym all the time. I started to just like build a community at the gym. And then from there, I was like, there's fitness events here and there, especially throughout the summer in New York. Like, let me start to attend these. So I networked on my like quote unquote off days, but even sometimes after work, I would go to like, a gym with the intention to be like, to network, kind of scope the space, see how things are there. So yeah, I was really intentional with how I was spending my time. If I knew that, I eventually wanted my environment to be the fitness community, I started to put myself out there. And then I started to build a strategy where it was like, okay, I give myself, maybe 4 more months like in this job. During those 4 months, I need to do this, I need to do this. Like I started to already think about getting certified. I got to make sure that's done. Like starting to put the bug in people's ear that I'm potentially training. Got to do that one. Starting to like position myself on, through my content that this is something I might start to do. So planting the seed, building like, moving with intention and just starting to build that strategy, I think ultimately helped me with like a blueprint to make me feel secure in taking that risk. Because even when I was in college, it was like, I could switch my major so that I'm focusing just on fitness, or I could follow through like what I'm doing, like within journalism, that's transferable skills. And it's like one of the best programs out there. I'll continue with this, but I didn't really see it as possible to do fitness full time. So I was always hesitant. But I think my environment definitely shaped my confidence, and then being able to like securely leave what I was familiar with but didn't love, and go into something that like I was starting to learn and has always been passionate about.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that what you said about environment seems very key, because I feel like if you're not surrounded by it, then there is an aspect that kind of makes it feel unrealistic. That's not the word you used, but is if you're not surrounded by it, if you're not seeing it every day, you don't necessarily, your first thought is not, this is something I could do full time, if I'm not necessarily seeing that being done yet. So I think
Yeah.
that's really huge in terms of the role that the environment plays. In the midst of you doing all of this, though, where does COVID fall in the midst of you building this network and trying to build your brand? Like, where does COVID and the effect of it and that it has on your brand, how does that all play into the timeline here?
Yeah. Surprisingly, COVID was the launch pad into like what I do now. And I say that because during this time, that's when I was, what do they call it? I was quiet quitting in my job during this time. So I was quiet quitting, I was coasting. I was just kind of like, you know what? I'm working from home. I was like, I got a rooftop up here. I can start to do like my workouts up on the roof because gyms were closed. So I'm like, do my workouts on the roof. I started posting my workouts more. And then I started getting brands like sending me their kettlebells, sending me their dumbbells, like really started to get just some gifted opportunities. And then this is around the time when I started my it was my, I don't know if I was doing like Wednesday and Fridays. I was doing ab workouts on live, like twice a week. And so I started to just build just a community with that. I'm just like, yeah, every Wednesday and Friday I'll be on live during this time doing ab workouts. So then I came up with the challenge. And I think during this challenge throughout COVID, that was one of the first times I put together like a program that I was going to monetize from, and really see how that, like I built a website, I built like a whole payment portal. I'm like, let's just see this whole online digital services that people are doing now. Let's see if I can, hop on that within fitness. And I was like, okay, this is like pretty good feedback. Like, this is great. And that just started to put more like energy behind me actually pursuing fitness full time. But yeah, I don't think, because I had not yet, like during the pandemic, I was in the process of getting certified. So I hadn't yet gotten certified. So because this was still kind of my like, I was like in the incubator. I was like, all right, like I'm cooking up. And so like after COVID, like I'm gonna like leave my 9 to 5. I'll then hop into fitness. So that was my time to really cook and just like make sure everything was good.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, COVID, I think in a lot of different ways, COVID proved to be that kind of incubator time and space for a lot of people, a lot of creatives, a lot of entrepreneurs. I feel like if you're a creative person, or if you're somebody that is a person that plans or has a vision, I feel like COVID was that time where, well, we ain't going nowhere. We all stuck in the house.
Yes.
So after a while, like once you get past the what's happening, what's going on, like
Yes.
how scared do I
Yeah.
need to be? Like once you get past that, I think for a lot of people it did turn into, okay, well, if I was going to do this, how would that look? How much time do I need? What all do I need to
Yes.
do? What all can I do in this
Mhm.
time? And with all the opportunities, especially with financial assistance that was going on, during the pandemic, a lot of
Yeah.
people, I'm pretty sure that helped a lot of people really, really jumpstart and probably served as a launching pad for them as well. So that makes a lot of sense. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it seems like divine timing in that sense. You
Mhm.
mentioned the content creation, and I think that content creation is so, there was a time where content creation wasn't necessarily the norm. Whereas now I feel like everybody, in essence, if you use social media, you could essentially damn near be considered a content creator, just because you naturally are at a more consistent rate. But when you tie that content creation to branding and to business, and understanding that the goal for that is to build engagement, to extend reach, to ultimately bring people in, how do you approach content creation and the fluctuation that comes with engagement and things of that nature because of the algorithms and all that of social media? How do you kind of approach that with understanding okay, I'm making this content. Of course, I want it to look good, but the content doesn't matter more than the brand. And how do you not let the
Yeah.
fluctuation of views or engagement or whatever the case may be, or at least when that may have been something that was more so on your mind, how did you not let that dictate your dedication to your brand and continuing to build it?
Yeah, yeah. I think with me, social media, and I feel like for a lot of creators, it's like a constant experiment. Like you always have to experiment with like what works, like what's seasonal, what's, like you're evolving too as a person, as a creator. Like for me, I'm constantly inspired by like different trending audios or like just different seasons. Like that's what inspires me within my content. And just even with how I flow as a coach, I'm like, all right, like I'm about to do an October fall into fitness challenge. I'm like a summer shred. Like I feel like you really have to play on just like ever changing time. That's kind of how I am with social media. And so when I think of my involvement within the social media space, it really started in college when I made the decision. It's funny because I actually reached out to one of those like few influencers at the time that I was following my junior year of college. I remember going back and forth. I'm like, should I message her? I think I should message her because I wasn't sure if I should do a personal Instagram page and a fitness dedicated Instagram page or combine the two. And I'm like, I really want to do this right. I'm like, if I'm gonna make a fitness page, like I want it to just be fitness, or I can start to like make it into what I have now. So I messaged her because I noticed she had both of them. Her name's Lita Lewis. Like I think right now she has like 3 kids. She's like a fitness mom. She's amazing. But at the time, I think she was living in Brooklyn. She was like one of the top like Black fitness women creators. And she basically was just like, she messaged me back. She was like, hey girl, like it's totally up to you. She's like, I have a fitness, but she's like, sometimes you'll see me sprinkle some fitness in the personal. Sometimes I'll sprinkle some personal into fitness. It's really just 2 homes for like my communities to live. And like if they decide to merge, they can merge. But if you just want fitness stuff from me, cool. If you just want like, whatever city girl stuff from me, cool, here's that. And so I'm like, all right. So I made a fitness dedicated page, was posting here and there, just like home workouts at like my apartment. And then when I started doing boot camps at API, that's when I also started to post on there, just my flyers and stuff like that. But I hadn't seen it as a way to like during the pandemic, there's like brand opportunities, like sponsorships. Like I never saw that potential with it because I just wasn't there yet. I wasn't even following people who were like getting those opportunities. So yeah, the pandemic definitely helped me to like see things in a different way in terms of the potential. And then in terms of like my content and the type of stuff I do post now and that I did post then, it's been an like ever evolving type of experiment for me. Given that I am an online coach now, I have an account manager and like we go through like my insights, we go through the content for this week that's done the best or like that's been shared the most, that's garnered me the most leads. So I think of it from a strategic standpoint. But at the end of the day, I'm also just like, I'm me. So like I'm gonna be in Tulum on Thursday. You're gonna see that. Like I'm still me. I have balance, I have fun, and I don't want my clients or just people who find my page to ever think I'm just this like carbon cut copy of just someone who works out. Like I have a life outside of this. So yeah, I've blended it into one now, but at the time I had 2 separate accounts. But yeah, it's really just lifestyle and fitness, in my opinion.
Okay. And I mean, and I think honestly that makes sense. I think you make a great
Yeah,
point in regards to, especially with you being a coach, even though I mean, just from me knowing and following you, I feel like even
yeah,
before you declared yourself a coach, that was the vibe, that I got.
yeah,
So, but even in stepping into that realm, it makes perfect sense for that combination to be there. And I think it's important, like you mentioned, for your clients, even for people that are just following for inspiration, to understand that you aren't just this, that you aren't a bot in a sense. You aren't this thing
yeah,
that somebody
yeah,
like you didn't just get thrown into here to just be fitness.
yeah,
You have a story, you have a reason to your fitness, you have things that you want to bring people into your community that aren't just based in like the solely fitness aspect. And I
yeah,
feel like that's probably how you're able to build and extend your reach, is just having some of those things that people can relate to personally. So
yeah.
definitely understand that aspect. More on you being a coach. What's your approach to that? How does it feel? I won't even just say online coach, but how does it feel being a fitness coach, and what is your approach with your clients, and how do you feel like it differs from other, fitness coaches, either that, or just that you kind of see and you may be looking at that, or not necessarily like, I don't want to say levels, but
Yeah.
people that you feel like are in adjacent lanes or doing the same thing that you're doing. How do you feel like your style differs from what you've seen?
Yeah. So what I like to say is that I essentially teach women to unleash their inner athlete by really adopting holistic skills that are sustainable. So for my clientele, I've realized now that I am, a one-to-one online coach, I have meal plans, I have training programs, I help you with habit coaching. So if you're someone who comes to me and it's like, Denajha, I'm always tired. Like I want to work out in the morning, but I can never, find myself to get up. I can never make it a consistent routine. The first thing I'm going to look at is like, what does your nighttime routine look like? Like, how are we setting ourselves up to even have that energy and just that intention to work out in the morning? I can't say like, I plan to do this if I'm not prepping myself prior to. That's the same thing we do with like warming up for a session. I can't go in with like, oh, I'm going to PR today if I'm not like efficiently warming myself up. You got to prime yourself for those actions. So with my clients, when they come to me, I really start them in like a foundation phase of their training. And during this phase, it's really an opportunity for discovery. Like you're discovering what types of movements you like, what types of movements you need, where you're lacking in other areas of your life as well. It's like, energy. Are we not even eating enough? Are we stressed? Are we hanging on to like fat storage because we're stressed? There's a lot of things that go into just someone's fitness journey that I feel like I help uncover with my clientele. Because I don't just throw a program at them and say, hey, here's your 3-month program. Here you go. Here's your 3-month meal plan. I like to dissect things into phases. So I'd say for me as a coach, I have the patience to actually work with someone from literally ground zero and help them see through the ups and downs why it's worth it to like live a healthy lifestyle versus someone who may try to force feed their client, if you want like, a big booty and if you want some abs, like here's like the best program for you. Like I really try to focus on longevity because I have people who, when I hear their story, I'm just like, man, like you're not able to play with your nieces and nephews, or you're not able to, get up a flight of stairs without feeling winded, or, now you can't even sit down without your hips hurting. So there's certain things that just constantly keep that spark in me where it's just like, okay, this is why I do what I do, because I just feel like to be able-bodied and to be able to like have access to movement and to, really just feel like your body has like infinite potential, I feel like is one of the best feelings someone can have. And so if you feel limited or locked within your own body, like that's not a good feeling. So when my clients come to me, I really help them discover who they are. And it really just starts with building habits that are sustainable.
Absolutely. And I mean, that is, I think, I don't know too many, like online coaches, but I would think that may be problems that people run into when dealing with fitness coaches now, because it's such a fast growing industry and because it's so
Yeah.
easy to I don't want to say that it's easy to become an influencer, but from my personal opinion, it's easy to get to a space where there are a lot of people looking to you for something, and you can just give them something that might be a quick fix or might be something they want in the moment, but it doesn't really set them up for healthy habits, sustainable habits, things that are important to longevity. So I think the longevity aspect is
Yeah.
huge, and I'm pretty sure your clients are happy with it. I know you have a boat of them, but being in this fitness space as well, I think as many things, in American history, this industry was once, of course, dominated by men, and I think that women have been fighting, and of course are still fighting to just have more of a voice. I think that women have kind of proved that they are here, in the sense of being in that industry and being heard and being seen. But in terms of creating that voice and even creating more of a presence, speak to what you feel like you've been able to do and what you've seen in regards to building that presence and building that voice of women in the fitness industry specifically.
Yeah, I would say definitely within these past few years, the exposure and just representation of women, especially Black women in the fitness industry, has definitely skyrocketed. Um, I think it's unfortunate that it's had to take this long, and it's only, since been sparked by certain like current events or certain movements. But I know like to name specifically, like after the George Floyd situation, I do remember a lot of fitness brands were like, I stand with, the movement, and they started to recruit a lot of Black fitness influencers, and that was like the rise to that like exposure of people who look like me. And I was happy about it, but I'm also just like, like, why did it take this in order for it to happen? And like, of course, like they're putting out campaigns where it's like all of their Black athletes and things like that. And I'm just like, I love the representation, but I just don't know if I really loved how it was sparked. But since then, I do also think that, yeah, it's just more common for women to be in the gym and, actually, chasing that feeling of strength. That's like one of the most like exciting things that I hear when I'm speaking to a potential client, where I'm like, in the next 3 months, what would you hope to accomplish? And I love when they say, like, I just want to feel stronger. I want to be able to, like, hold a plank for a minute. There's these different testaments to strength where I'm just like, okay, like it's definitely there. It's in the conversation. It's something that women see as, possible for them. And we're also, I think we're reshaping and redefining what it means to be strong. And I think for a lot of, people, women specifically in the past, it's like, oh, if I lift weights, I'm going to get bulky, or like I'll look manly, or I just, don't know if I'm, cut out to actually strength train or put on muscle. So I think just shifting the narrative and then definitely having more exposure has been something that I've seen is on the rise. And I've actually like been able to like be a part of that. So like that feels good as someone who's like was once like just seeing it as like, okay, like I think there should be more representation, but also having that voice within the inside. So where I, have clients who can say like, my trainer is Black, my trainer is a woman, and like my trainer is strong. And to be able to like pour these same ideals and values into them, and like what it, the benefits of being stronger, like long term. And like there's this post I made like a while back about one of this older client I had. She's like 50 something, and she came to me like really frail, really like skinny, and she had told me like how it would make her cringe to see women with like big quads, or like she's like, or like when women have muscles, I just don't think it's feminine. And like she's telling me this as her potential trainer, and I'm just listening to her, and I was like, okay. I'm like, all right, stand up, like do the movement assessment. I told her to squat, I told her to lunge, I told her to do the balance test. She failed all those tests. And I remember at the end of our session, she was real quiet. And I was like, given our assessment today, how are you feeling? And she's like, to be honest with you, Denajha, I've never felt so weak in my life. She's like, this is just like shocking to me. She's like, I need to get stronger. And like during that conversation, I explained to her, like, yes, the physique and the muscles may not be attractive to you. I get it. People have their preferences. But like in terms of longevity and your health and your bone health and your muscles, as you age, it's only going to become brittle, like, and more brittle. So you need to actually start strength training. And that was like the turning point for her. She has muscle now. She can do squats. She can do like hold on one leg without falling over. So I'm just like, this is why I do what I do. And I feel like strong women are definitely in the industry and are being recruited by brands who would only used to like look at men.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think client testimonials like that are beautiful. You answered the question I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Client testimony. I don't know if that's your favorite, but I mean, that's a great example. And I think that it's just time. I think it's time to see that anyway, because like you said, I think it's one thing I would imagine it's one thing for a woman to be trained, by a man, right? Like it can happen. That relationship can be fine. It can be beneficial, whatever the case may be. But in the same way that I just think of it that men hear things differently and receive messages differently from a man, like an older man who they either respect or admire, whatever the case may be. I imagine that in the role of a coach, a woman being, trained by a woman, there's just certain things that you are able to give them as a trainer that a man can't, or not even as a trainer, sorry, as a coach, that a man can't, so yeah, no, I think that's a beautiful thing as well. Kind of going along with that, do you feel like, and I kind of even hate to ask because I hope it's something that isn't super prevalent, but do you feel like you deal with sexism or misogyny in the industry as it relates to even your content and and how people may feel like you appear in that, and just in general, do you, At what level do you feel like you deal with it, and what have kind of been your thoughts, and how have you approached or handled in moments or
Yeah.
experiences where you might have?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I've never been asked that before, but my thoughts on that, and like just from personal experience, is because my page is lifestyle and fitness, where you do see both sides of me. You see me in the gym, you see me in a sports bra, you see me in spandex shorts, you see skin. Outside the gym, I like my skirts, I love my halter tops, I'm still wear crop tops, like you see skin. So at the end of the day, I feel like when people see skin, it's like, oh, you scroll, it's like, okay, okay. And you start to like paint this image of like who this person may be. Because I'm in health and fitness, I feel like it's very common to see skin, especially like muscles, you see legs, you see a lot of that. But I feel like for me, there is a certain there's a certain like threshold in terms of like what I'm comfortable with, and like what I commit to as well. Because there's been photo shoots I've been asked to do that I've said no to. There's been products that I've been asked to promote that I've said no to, because I feel like at the end of the day, I am a business. Like Denajha Melanie Phillips, me, I'm business. So I feel like whatever I do, whether it's like me on the job, me not on the job, that's me as a business. So my platform, my lead form is literally on there. Like that's a gateway into my leads. That knowing that is another reason why I'm not super strict with how I go about deciding if something is like worth posting, but I'm just mindful about it. I'm just like, okay, if I post this, I got to think, here's how it could be received. Here's how it could be received as well. Like there's people are entitled to their own opinions, but at the end of the day, yeah, there's been things that have come my way where I'm just like, and so, like now I have like keywords that I can block on Instagram. So if any comment has like certain keywords, I'm like, they're not even gonna be able to comment. you have wait, what you know about this?
I don't. You saying it just made me think about how reckless some people of my species
Oh
can be.
yes, I'm like, dang,
So
I hate to
yeah,
categorize y'all, but like, I'm like, please, it's just a screen. Like, relax.
yeah, no, it can. A lot of us
Yeah,
are extremely terrible when it
it's
comes
crazy out
to
here. I'm just
the
like,
ignorance. Yeah, it's terrible. It's
ignorant. But yeah, I had to put the keyword blinders on, because I got to make sure those don't even get through the
mm,
gates. So yeah, because it's just been interesting. 'Cause, like the more I've learned about the algorithm, the more I am just like, because like talking to like one of my old account managers, she had mentioned that, because I think this goes in terms of like we're talking about Google reviews on businesses, and I think I don't know if there was an article or a study that came out that said if like owners delete comments or reviews, they're like, I don't even know. They're not points or like there's some type of system where it's like it's just not seen as like credible. Like their credibleness goes down or something like that, trustworthiness. So she was saying how like that kind of correlates to how Instagram designs like their algorithm. Like if you delete comments, that goes against your engagement rate. So like the more comments you have, obviously the higher percentage of engagers you have as well. So she was like, I remember we had a conversation. She's like, yeah, like keep comments, like don't delete them, even if it's from like bots or whatever, just like keep them. But I like see some of the stuff on like my page and just on my friends' page too, where I just know that like they're probably getting some worse than me. And I just see them, I'm just like, why do people even bother to, go the extra mile and do stuff like this? So it can be annoying, it's irritating, but at the end of the day, yeah, I try to just make sure I'm mindful about my content, but I'm still going to show like me.
absolutely. Yeah, it may not mean much. I apologize on behalf of men for our ignorance and
Yeah.
unwarranted, unnecessary, unprovoked comments at that. I just know some of us take it the extra mile. I
Yeah.
promise it. I'm working on the ones I know. I can't speak for the ones I don't. but throughout like your fitness journey, whether that be like your personal fitness journey or your journey and your career path to being a coach, what would you say has been the biggest thing that you've learned? And if it's something that you feel or that you feel is or can apply as a life lesson, then great. But if not, just in general, what has been your biggest lesson, from falling back in love with fitness and starting this path of your own personal fitness journey, but also becoming a coach and getting into the fitness industry as well?
Yeah. I would say Oh, this is a good question. My biggest lesson or learning that I've had thus far. Um, I would say like, okay, it's basically two words, but I feel like there's a lot that goes behind it. So what I've learned is to keep going. And I feel like I have a tattoo that is really my mantra, and it's doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. And I feel like a lot of times what I've learned through myself and what's been reiterated by my clientele and even family members is that like, yeah, I've started and I've stopped. I've started and I've stopped. I've started and I've stopped. So they have like the yo-yo effect with what they're trying to accomplish. And I feel like whether it's like a career you really want, whether it's like an accomplishment you really want to achieve, any goal for that matter, it's truly about consistency, like to keep going. And like even having like family members now where it's like, that looking back, if there were things they could have kept, doing, or if they could have changed, or if they could have stuck to, everyone sometimes always has that one thing where it's like, man, I wish I would like in high school, I would have kept doing this, or in college, like I would have never quit this. I feel like if there's something that like really makes you feel like happy, brings you joy, and it's just, you feel at peace when you're doing it, you just need to keep going. It's like, you never know what that could blossom into if you give the time, energy, focus, attention to really nurturing that. And that's really what I teach my clients too. It's like I'm taking you through phases of your program, but it's for you to evolve within each phase. And you're learning throughout the process, like, oh, I really love this. I don't really like this. Or, in this environment, I do better. In this environment, I whatever. So you just learn different things about yourself. So yeah, so far throughout my fitness journey, that has been the number one lesson is to keep going. And like, there's always going to be moments of doubt. Like I'm never going to be able to be like, like I have surpassed doubt. Like everyone always has those moments, but I think it's like bringing yourself back down to earth and understanding your why, your purpose, how you feel when you're in the zone. These are all things that help me like keep me grounded, but also are, is that fuel to help me like stick with the plan essentially.
Yeah, no, that's huge, and I think, of course, that's applicable to everything. But I feel like for you, like in your industry specifically, that doubt can creep in, in so many different ways. In regards to, I don't think, at least based on what you said, that the question would be that you would question what you're doing, but in terms of knowing for sure that like what you're doing is having the impact that you want it to have. And it's also very much based on your client being content with what you're giving them as well, and the results that
Yeah.
you. So I think how
Yeah.
doubt to play into that as well is huge. So I feel that as a major lesson.
Yeah. And I'll even add to like keep going, but be willing to change your approach if needed. Because I feel like you're constantly growing. Like my mindset in regards to fitness back in college is nowhere where it's at today. Like the information I thought I knew about fitness back in college is nowhere where it's at today. So I feel like I've constantly been able to see what it is that I do as a vessel. I'm like, I have to constantly keep nurturing this and really see the potential versus being like, okay, I've done all I can do. This is my career. Boom. So yeah, just always gonna stay hungry for like what's next, I would say too.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely staying hungry for what's next.
Mhm.
On the contrary, what would you say is your either the thing that you're most well, your most proudest, or wow, your most proud accomplishment, or the thing that you're most proud of accomplishing in your career so far?
I would say getting my NASM certificate because this was during the pandemic. So while I did say like moments ago that the pandemic was a launch pad, it allowed me the time to invest into what I do now. It was also a time for you to just like sit with yourself and really think about things that maybe you have put off for so long or just like haven't really had time to like sit with yourself on that level with. But definitely during the pandemic, I realized that one thing I had to like improve 100% on if fitness was what I wanted to do was my severe case of procrastination.
Yeah.
Like biggest procrastinator. Like my mom had always told me that in high school, like you procrastinate so much. Da, da, da. I'm just like, no, I just take my time. Like I just take my time. It's procrastination. And so during the pandemic, it's like 1 month went by, 2 months, and they extended like the work from home. Like, oh, look, I'm really working from home. So what I had to make sure I wasn't falling into was like stagnancy, just like staying still. But also I'm like, there's a fine line between like, no movement and then like still moving, but like being able to be present within each moment. And so I found that my proudest moment was through a lot of the times of like trying to build like a study routine and like trying to find like a resource group and like the proper tools to help me get through my NASM test. That was like a huge accomplishment for me because I'm like, okay, I just need to pass this test. And once I pass this test, I'll really feel so confident to take fitness to the next level. Because I knew that like if this was a career I wanted, like I got to have, the certificates under my belt. I have to be licensed. There's things I need to have to do. So I knew the information, but I'm like, obviously I need to be credible with a license. So yeah, getting that was such a big accomplishment for me. And that's what really set the pace and like allowed me to like really move with eagerness following the pandemic to make it happen.
Absolutely. Okay, so for the casual fitness junkies like myself, what exactly is a NASM certificate?
Yeah, so it is the National Academy of Sports Medicine, I think it stands for. But this is where you get your license if you want to be a personal trainer. So at the time, they had the online courses because of the pandemic. So I actually went through like, what would you even call it? Not like a subsidiary. It's like an extension of NASM. It's like one of their partners, and it's called Body Design. It's in Atlanta, and they started offering their online course during the pandemic for a discounted rate. And they give you like a mentor. You give access to their like educational tools, but it was essentially helping to like break down the NASM test so that when it came time to take it, you have the tools you needed to pass it. Because they say like not everyone passes in their first attempt. Like some people have to take it twice, 3 times, because one of the hardest parts on it is the anatomy test to actually know like parts of the body, like if this is injured, what not to train. So it's a lot of scenario based stuff like that. I'm just a bad test taker. I'm a bad test taker. So I had anxiety going into it already, but I think that anxiety caused me to procrastinate even more. Where it's just like, when you're anxious about something, it's just like, I'm just gonna I'm gonna just get to it when I get to it, and then days go by, weeks go by, and I'm just like, man. So yeah, once I got that off my chest, I'm like, thank God. And I passed in the first attempt. So I was just also so happy about that. And yeah, but that's what it stands for the non-fitness junkies out there.
I need to be in the know. I'm in the know now, so whenever
Yeah.
I begin, I won't feel like such a casual. Well, we have reached this point in the interview. We have talked about so much. We've talked about your story and your fitness journey. We've talked about the impact and the role you want to play in others' fitness journeys, and everything from the content creation to the business side to everything in between. With everything that you talked about, everything that you've referenced, alluded to, just let the people know what makes you as as a woman, but also as an online coach, what makes you qualified?
Ooh, what makes me qualified? Oh, I would say what makes me qualified is that when you get to know me as like a coach, as a person, as a friend, as someone who is both a social butterfly but also introverted, you understand that like it's so important to be able to be like multifaceted in a community where like maybe entrepreneurship is something that you're seeking. Because I think for me, I always saw, entrepreneurship is something that was I had to fit within a lane. It's like I have to be able to, either be a personal trainer or I have to either be, a boot camp instructor. I can't do all of these things. But I think what I would say makes me qualified is that I've been able to adopt like a very multifaceted approach to who I am as a person, but also like what I see as like potential opportunities for me. I'm like the opportunities are endless. Like I could really take this wherever I want to go with it. And yeah, I'm about to come up on my year of online coaching. So that's just something that I'm just like, wow, like years ago, I would have never thought this is where I'd be today. But it just really puts everything full circle. And I'm just like very honored to also have people like you who are just like, I want to know more about your story. Like I want to know, where you're at today and like how you're doing what you're doing. So yeah, this has been great. I think I love everything that you do as well.
Thank you. Well, yes, first off, thank you. I appreciate it. But no, like, thank you for your answers as well. I mean, I think what you're doing is, to see to see your growth, like from that pandemic time to now, just seeing more people know you, and just seeing you come up on other people's feeds, like, oh, they found out about Denajha. Cool. Awesome. But that's it's always amazing to see, but it's also just, at least in my mind, a testament to how passionate you are about this, how much this means to you. So I'm just glad that, I have a platform and I have people that I feel like watch and could benefit, from hearing your story and seeing how you got to where you are today. So yeah, I appreciate that, but I appreciate you coming on and taking the time as well. Is there anything else that you want people to know about? Where can people find out more information about you, the services you offer?
Yeah.
Like the Jazz, just go ahead and plug anything that
Yeah.
you.
Okay, so you can connect with me on Instagram at DEN3AsJHA. My business and my services can be found on trainwithdenajha.com. I do have my own online coaching app that has meal plans, training programs, habit coaching. I just launched a community group chat in there as well earlier this week. And I have something new in the works as well for those people who may not be ready for one-on-one online coaching, but you do still want to benefit from maybe a program or a challenge or a community. Something new is in the works. So I'll definitely share more about that on my Instagram page.
Awesome. Y'all heard it. So make sure y'all following. Make sure y'all going to the websites, get tapped in now. Looking busy soon. So
Yes.
but again, thank you so much for taking the time. I know your week is busy. I know you'll be out of here soon, but thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. And man, I hope y'all picked up gems. I mean, I told y'all every guest, they leaving gems, they dropping gems. So I hope y'all getting them. That honestly, that's gonna be the thing for this season. Dropping gems. I'm gonna find a way to sprinkle that in there somewhere.
Yes.
But anyway, until next week and until next episode, I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.